Hello everybody, I'm Shawn Powers, and today we are talking about packages.
Oh my God, look at my package.
No, we're talking about Linux packages, specifically RPM and DEB-based package management as part of the Linux Plus exam objectives. Whether or not you want to take the exam, that's where we're basing this video on. So we're going to look at package management using multiple tools, DNF, Yum, apt, ZYPPER, and we're going to look at the two different types of packages that are specified here. RPM, and then it doesn't spell it out, but D packages for .deb files. And that's what we're going to look at. Even though there are other options out there for package management, these are the main ones that we're going to look at. They're the most common. They're used in Red Hat variants and Debian variants like Ubuntu, etc. And we're going to talk just briefly about these. This is an odd sort of thing they added on to the objectives, but kernel updates generally require a reboot. Not always, but almost always. They'll require a reboot and they'll have to rebuild a bunch of modules. So this isn't necessarily done every time you update your system. You can update packages either depending on your distribution. You can update all the packages. You can update the packages that are in need of security updates. There's several different ways you can go about updating packages and kernel updates. And the most important thing is to make sure that you have the most recent versions if there are security fixes. But we're going to look at a bunch of different tools that you can use to manage packages on your system, because by default, just managing individual packages is not the way to go. Because like I said, we're going to look at deb files like .deb, which Debian is where that came from, and then .rpm, which stands for Red Hat Package Manager. And back in the old days, there didn't used to be like this big database way to install and manage the things on your system. You used to have to install the .rpm or the .deb files, and it was really a pain in the butt because an individual RPM file or deb file does not necessarily contain all the dependencies, although they do know what dependencies they require. And if you try to install them manually, you end up with a nightmare. Let me show you what I mean. First, we'll start with Rocky Linux, which is the same as Red Hat. So it uses RPM. So this is, like I said, Rocky Linux, which is just like Red Hat Enterprise Linux version 9. I think this is Rocky version 9. Anyway, in here, I have an RPM file. Now, this is not, like I said, normally how you would get a file installed on your Linux system, but it used to be this way. And occasionally you'll have to install an RPM. But let's say we had this RPM file and we wanted to install it using just the RPM tools, not the package management system. Well, we would do sudo rpm-i for install, and then the file that we want to install. And now if there are no dependencies or all the dependencies are already installed on your system, hey, no problem. However, well, I got to put in my password. You'll see here, it's not going to install because we also have to have a libteam and libteam so.5, which is probably part of the libteam file. Yeah, that's actually what it's saying. It needs it from the libteam file. So what we'd have to do is then go online and try to find the proper version of libteam.rpm with like the exact version that we're looking for on the repos. We would install that. And then if that has its own dependencies, we end up in something that used to be called RPM hell. And it was kind of a play on the term of DLL hell, which is what Windows users would talk about, like this DLL, dynamic link library in Windows, interferes with this DLL, and so I can't have them both installed, and I can't get my package to work, etc., etc. So this used to be a very frustrating way to install packages. And of course, it's not limited just to RPM-based things. The same thing is true like on a Debian or Ubuntu system that uses debs. So here I'm on an Ubuntu system which uses .deb files, and you'll see I've already downloaded. This is a curl, like the curl we talked about in a previous video. Curl is to fetch a URL or a file online. The curl program, though, to install it, we could use the dpackage system or the dpackage program, which manually handles .deb files. So we could do sudo dpackage-i for install, and then this file curl blah 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 blah, and we'll press enter. And if there were no dependencies that were unmet, it would have installed, and it would have been installed on our system and we could use it. However, just like with that RPM file, this says, well, no, this depends on libcurl4. And so in the old days, we'd have to like go and find the libcurl with the exact version that it's looking for, install that deb file. Of course, that deb file might have some other dependency, like libcurl might depend on glibc or something, and we have to find that one and go all the way back until all the dependencies were met. But thankfully, there is a better way. In fact, there's quite a few better ways, because in the world of RPMs, like using Red Hat or Rocky Linux or even SUSE Linux, which also uses the RPM system, there's package management systems which kind of wrap around RPMs or DEBs in the case of a Debian-based system, and they kind of keep a database of all the available packages on a repository on the internet. And when you say I want to install something, it says, okay, what other dependencies are there? And then it finds all of those dependencies, downloads and installs them all, so you don't have to track down each individual one. It has made managing Linux so much better than it used to be. But there are a lot of ways to skin the same cat, which is a horrible, horrible metaphor. I don't like that. There's a lot of ways to manage packages in Linux. So I'll show you the various ways mentioned in the objectives, but no, there are others. Like if you're on Arch Linux, there's going to be Pacman. We're not covering that. We're just going to cover the ones mentioned in the objectives, and they are the most common. So for example, we're back here, we're on Rocky Linux, which like I said, is just like Red Hat Linux. And instead of using the RPM tool, we can say, oh, well, there's two different tools that come with Red Hat variants, which is interesting. One is YUM, which stands for Yellow Dog Updater Modified. There's another whole story there. And the other one is DNF, which was written by Red Hat, and it stands for Dandified YUM, which I think is a little bit silly. DNF is newer. It's the one that you should be using on a Red Hat-based system because it has a few more features, like the ability to roll back if you want to make a change. I'll show you what I mean. But first of all, to install, like, let's say this Team D thing that I had downloaded, we could say sudo yum install Team D. And this is the difference. See, we couldn't install it before because there were dependencies. The dependencies were libteam. And like I said, libteam might have its own dependencies. And sure enough, it does. If you look, libteam apparently depended on libnl3-CLI. But the nice thing about using a package management system like YUM is that it gets all of those dependencies and it will install all of them. So in order to use YUM to install this Team D package that I just randomly picked, I would just say yes, and it would download all of the packages required, install the dependencies, and then install that package. Now I'm going to say no, not because this doesn't work. This would work perfectly fine, but I want to show you how you would do the exact same thing, but using DNF. And in fact, the command line flags are almost identical when you're using DNF or YUM. So let's see, sudo DNF install Team D. And well, look at that, it even looks exactly the same, right? It's just has some more features. So it's YUM, but dandified, thus the name DNF. And this is going to do the exact same thing. It's going to download the dependencies. We'll actually do it this time, but it does the same thing whether you're using YUM or DNF. It's saying that there is a GPG key. Do I want to import that? I'm going to say yes, I want to import that. And boom, there, it has installed it, and now it's running, and it keeps like a database of everything that is installed on the system. So the next time we install something, if one of its dependencies is this Team D or libteam or whatever it was, it'll say, oh, that's already installed. I don't need to download that. So like I said, YUM and DNF are almost exactly the same when you're using them on the command line. It's very possible that YUM will go away in the future. Right now it's still installed. It's still a perfectly cromulent way to, manage the packages on your system. And you can mix or match. You could use YUM and then you could use DNF. They have the same database of information that they pull from. So you can use either or right now, but it would not surprise me if YUM goes away at some future version of Red Hat stuff. It's just been replaced by DNF, so there's no reason not to use DNF. And DNF will do, like I said, it will roll back. It'll allow you to take back, like if you install something and you decide you want to undo that, DNF allows you to do that, whereas Yum does not. And that really is one of the big differences between the two, is DNF has more features, that being a main one. But whether you're using DNF or Yum, you can do things like update, which will update all the packages on your system. If you say update and a package name, it will only update that one package. I'll show you really quick how to do the rollback, because since we use DNF, we could roll back. So we're back here on the system that we just installed Team D. Actually, I don't even know what Team D is, but we just installed that. And now if we do DNF, now we don't have to be root to do this one, but we could say DNF history, and it's going to show us the stuff that it did. Now, since it shows a full history, you're going to see that before the video, I actually removed Team D so that all this would work. But this shows a history of all the things that have been done with DNF on the system. And since we see that this was done, the install Team D was ID number 3. So we can say, now this does require sudo because it's going to make some system-wide changes. We could say sudo DNF history undo, and then the number 3, that last thing. If we do that, it's going to remove the packages and the dependencies that we just installed. Basically, it's going to just roll back exactly what we just did. So I'm going to say yes. And now we don't have Team D installed anymore. So that's one of the advantages of DNF over Yum. When it comes to upgrading packages on your system, whether you're using Yum or DNF, there are two very similar sounding and kind of confusing terms. You can either do Yum or DNF update. And if you do that, if you specify a package, it's just going to update that one package. But if you do it without any other, things at the end, just update and press enter, it's going to update all of the packages on your system, which is normally what you want to do. Normally you want to update all the packages to get them up to date. And you can see there's a whole bunch of them. It actually shows you different kinds, like it's going to install a new kernel because there's a new kernel, and then it will activate that. So I'll have to restart. It's going to upgrade all these packages, and it's going to install these dependencies down here because the new updated packages require updated dependencies as well. So you can do update, and that's pretty safe. The other option that you have, I'm going to say no here. The other option you have, and again, whether you're using DNF or Yum, so we'll use DNF this time just because, you can say upgrade instead of update. And the difference here is that it's going to allow the system to get rid of obsolete packages. And these are packages that are obsolete, no longer like current. However, it's possible that some of those packages are things you're still using. So it's a little more dangerous to do upgrade. A lot of times if you have upgraded from like Red Hat 8 to Red Hat 9 on your system, you can do upgrade and it will get rid of obsolete packages and replace it with updated ones. But just know that it could break stuff if you're actually using those older packages. So upgrade is generally not used as much as update on a Red Hat system, but we'll say upgrade, and it's going to do the exact same thing. In this case, it's the same packages. There aren't any obsoleted ones that it's, worrying about getting rid of, because again, we're not changing anything drastic on our system. And so it's going to do the exact same thing, but just know that upgrade has the potential to break stuff easier than update does. And I hate that it's like such similar words, but the thing is, upgrade, think of it as like I upgraded to a new version of the Linux system as opposed to just updating my current packages. Maybe that'll help. Anyway, we say Y, it's going to go download all of the stuff. It's going to install it. Again, in this case, it's a kernel package that it's updating and going to recompile all the modules that it needs to, and it will tell us that we need to reboot in order to, complete and activate it. And so if that's the kind of thing that it's a production system, you might have to time when you can upgrade it if it's going to require a reboot. Now, you probably remember that I said SUSE Linux also uses RPM, and that's true. The underlying packages are RPM on a SUSE Linux box. However, it does not use Yum or DNF to manage the packages. It uses something called ZYPPER. And so I'll show you that. Again, the underlying stuff is still RPM files, and that's how it, maintains its packages. But The actual system to keep track of dependencies and what's installed and where all the repositories online are and stuff, that uses the ZYPPER program, which is completely different from Red Hat or Rocky Linux. So I'm here on OpenSUSE, and this is, again, an RPM-based system, but it uses ZYPPER. And ZYPPER has slightly different commands in order to do things. Rather than just update and upgrade, there are update, or just up. It allows you to use shortcuts. There is dist upgrade, which is very rarely used. And that's the same sort of thing where it can remove packages for you, even if you don't want it to. So we don't normally do dist-upgrade, but ZYPPER or OpenSUSE has another option that Red Hat doesn't, and that's called patch. And patch basically just installs the very important things like security updates and stuff that, if there's a security release that has to be installed, even on a production system, you can do patch and it will install those without updating all of the other packages that may have updates, but they're not like super important. They're not security related updates. So patch is something that you can use more often on a production system, knowing that it's just going to update the things that are a security risk on your system. It's kind of cool, actually. And it works similarly. Sudo ZYPPER is the program instead of DNF or yum. It's ZYPPER. And then you can do things, and I didn't show you this with yum and DNF, but you can search for a package too. So we'll do it here. It works the same on the others. I mean, you can play with it and look at the man page, but we can say search for Firefox, I guess. Oh, and this is something, it says sudo password for root, but it's my local password that it wants. That's just some weird OpenSUSE thing. And it looked in its repositories, and these are the things that it found. So we could install, for example, Mozilla Firefox. We can install using ZYPPER, and it's going, let's do it. Sudo ZYPPER install, or you can just do they're real big on like shortcuts, but I mean, it's confusing enough having multiple ways to install packages on multiple distros. So I'm just going to type the whole thing. Install Mozilla Firefox. Now it did the exact same thing. It found any dependencies that it might need, and it did find a dependency. It said it's going to install the following two packages, this package and this package, in order to get the Mozilla Firefox. And it looks like it's going to upgrade it. It looks like it's already installed, which is fine. So do I want to do this? Y is the default, but I'm going to say yes. It's going to download all of those things. It's going to install it. And I shouldn't have said yes because I'll fast forward. I won't make you wait. But really quickly, look, see, it's downloading RPM files. So it is using an RPM system underneath. So I'm glad I hit enter so I could show you that. Okay, that's installed. We could do the same thing with, update or dist upgrade. But the one thing that's kind of unique here, sudo ZYPPER patch. What this will do is there's nothing to do. There are no security issues currently on the system that a patch would do. So we can, even if, there are upgrades available or updates available for our packages, we don't have to necessarily install them on a production system because there are no security ones currently available. Hopefully that makes sense. That's again, a big deal, but we could do sudo ZYPPER update, and this will update all the packages that are available to update. And you can say, if we hit yes here, it's going to get 232 packages to upgrade, 3 of them new. One of them is going to change its architecture, interestingly enough. But notice here it says OpenSUSE Tumbleweed requires ZYPPER DUP. DUP, again, they're all about shortcuts, is short for dist-upgrade. And that's because Tumbleweed, I'm getting in the weeds here with SUSE, but in the weeds, I didn't even mean that. It's a rolling distribution. And so that means that we're basically going to, upgrade will be more common because it doesn't like have releases. It just is a rolling release. So to fully upgrade Tumbleweed, we will do dist upgrade or just DUP, its shortcut. So I'm going to say no, just so I can show you that, and then we'll be done. Sudo ZYPPER. I could do dup, but I don't like that. Dist upgrade. And this is going to go through and now install again, it's installing the same packages. It's just telling you like, hey, when you have Tumbleweed, the rolling distribution, you should use dist upgrade. So, do with that what you will. Usually we don't use that in a production server environment anyway, but nonetheless, that's the difference between the two. We can press enter and it's going to upgrade all of the things, but it does tell us that a system reboot is going to be required because it's installing a new kernel, which is awesome information for it to tell us in advance. And that leaves us with the system that I actually prefer, I use the most, is a Debian-based system or .deb files using apt. And apt is the package management system for deb files. Apt is used in Ubuntu and Debian. There are some others, like apt-get is kind of a package management system that uses the apt database. And just like you can use yum and DNF at the same time, you can use apt and apt-get, and it just writes to the same database, so you can use either one. Apt alone, APT, is the most recent one, and it's the one mentioned in the objective. So that's what I'm going to show you. That's what I use. And there are a couple nuances with DEB-based systems versus RPM-based systems. And the biggest difference, and this really is a big difference, is that with yum and DNF and ZYPPER, when you search for a package or install a package, before it does anything, those systems will go and refresh everything on the web. Like they will get an update of all of the available packages and versions. But with an apt-based system, that's an extra step. You actually have to refresh the what is available database. And to do that, sudo apt update. So in this case, update means I want to update my cached information of packages that are available and what versions are on my repositories on the internet. So it means something drastically different, but it's important to do this first, because if you don't update, then you have old information and you don't know what packages are available. So sudo apt update. Oh, come on. There, finally. And it will get, it'll refresh its cache of what stuff is available. This goes pretty quick. As you can see, it's already done. And now we can use apt to upgrade or dist upgrade. And this is similar in that, like the different degrees of upgrade, because upgrade is going to do all the packages that have updates, but it's not going to allow it to remove packages and like do big changes. This is the same sort of thing. Generally, dist upgrade in an apt system is a little more dangerous, and dangerous isn't really a good word, but it's more apt, and that's too punny for me to say. It's possible that if you do dist upgrade, it might break packages on your system. But if you're doing like going from one version to another, dist upgrade will bring all of your packages up to the current distribution numbers versions by removing old stuff and installing the new versions of them if they exist, that sort of thing. So generally you just do upgrade, but dist upgrade is available if you have like a drastic change that you've done. And so we can simply do sudo apt upgrade. Oh, when we used dpackage to install curl, it screwed up the database. You remember earlier when I tried to do it manually, it actually screwed it up. And so what we can do, we could say sudo apt-f install, and it will fix what I broke. In fact, in this case, it's going to install curl properly by getting its dependencies. So I'm going to say yes, and that's a really nice feature that it will clean up my mess because I tried to do it manually. Even though I would never do that in real life, I was showing you kind of the old way that we had to do it. Anyway, so it's fixed that. And now I can actually run upgrade, and it'll say, okay, there are 75 upgrades, 5 new installs, 3 are not upgraded, 30 are standard security updates. And so this is how you can keep your system up to date. It says that these have been held back. If we were to do dist upgrade, these would also be upgraded. But again, it has the potential to break your system, maybe. Yeah, it's kind of a frustrating thing. Generally, you can avoid dist upgrade and just do upgrades and you'll be fine. So that's pretty much what we would do here. I just press enter. It's going to go and upgrade all the stuff. So depending on your system, you have lots of options for package management. The big thing to remember is on a Debian-based system, so using apt, you have to do apt update and then apt upgrade. In fact, you have to do apt update before you do like an apt install. So like if we were to do apt install Firefox, we'd have to do apt update first. Otherwise, it's going to try to pull an old version that doesn't exist anymore. So you always need to do apt update before you make any changes to your system. It's funny that Yum and DNF and ZYPPER all do that step automatically and apt just doesn't, but that's how it is. With great power comes great responsibility, and this is one of those examples. Anyway, I hope that was helpful. I encourage you to play with the different tools to see what they can do and the different options and how they work differently. Install a couple systems, distributions in a virtualized environment. So if you break it, so what? And just have fun. But as always, learn everything. Do what you love, and most importantly, be kind. I'll see you in the next video.